they turn this complete scheme on its head, saying, hey, guess what? The government gives you life. The government gives you liberty. And, because you're messing with one of those aspects, that's why we get to regulate it.
I can't have life or liberty without more laws.
Yeah, that's one of the weirdest arguments I've ever heard, and it's just a complete bizarro world understanding of how the law works.
It is. We are the Opportunity State. We are talking about a bizarre new case regarding firearm preemption that was just decided. Stick around. We are going to talk about this reverse Uno card of a case. But before we get started, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting the like button.
And if you want to check this case out, we'll throw it up on screen. This is out of the Supreme Court of the state of Pennsylvania. It's J-44-2023. And as Emily said, reverse Uno card. This is a little bit bizarre because we have typically, the way that I think our viewers should look at laws. The government doesn't tell us what we can do. It tells us what we can't do. We delegate authority to our representatives. Representatives pass laws. And sometimes they take that extra step in tying their own hands, maybe at lower levels, right, with statutory preemption. And so when we talk about statutory preemption, what is that?
So you can preempt a lot of things. So preemption is just a governmental body occupying a field of law such that the smaller, lesser government bodies cannot regulate on top of it. So we think about the federal government preempting immigration law, right?
Yeah, that's probably the most common example.
That is the most common example. And on the state level, we have lots of states in which the state body has preempted firearm law. So all those little counties and cities and municipalities and whatnot who want to over-regulate over and above past what the state has said about firearms, they're not allowed to do so.
Yeah.
So enter Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and, think about this kind of pyramid of, hey, we got these things, federal, state, county, city. I mean, we even put restrictions on like what HOAs can do. I mean, so we take this authority away.
HOAs.
We take this authority away. We work our way up. And that's what the state, the Commonwealth, maybe we've said state a couple times, but that's what the Commonwealth.
I always forget.
Sorry, you Commonwealths out there.
Commonwealthers.
That's what they have done there. They have two kind of important laws that the court is looking at in this case. That's Section 6120 of the Pennsylvania Uniform Firearm Act, which prohibits local governments from regulating firearms. And then there's another one. It's Section 2962G of the Home Rule Charter and Optional Plans Law, which similarly restricts municipal firearms ordinances. So we kind of do that here in Texas. We have our local government code. We have our government code. We have, pretty close provisions because we're regulating counties in one, we're regulating cities in the other. I imagine that's what we're doing here. And we have the city of Pennsylvania suing, saying, hey, we don't like these laws.
Yeah. Well, I guess they are preemptively suing over preemption,
Sure.
Right? Because they want to pass their own more restrictive laws. They cannot, and they're mad about it. And so basically what I take away from just looking at the law in Pennsylvania, and this is my Texas take, and I'm not a licensed attorney in the state Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Texas. It almost got me. But it would seem to me that in my legal opinion here is that Philadelphia thinks it's special. And it kind of is special, I guess.
Because it's of the first degree?
It's of the first class.
First class.
It is a city of the first class. So it seems to me, and again, not a Pennsylvania lawyer here, but, we have preemption, but then we also have the idea that the legislature gets to pass laws that only apply to cities of the first class, of which there is only one in the state of Pennsylvania, and that city happens to be Philadelphia. So as the chosen city here, it really does want to, I guess, do its own thing, and it has decided that the epidemic of gun violence is such that the preemption shouldn't apply to it. It should be able to regulate. So, I think we should talk about their arguments because they're interesting, although failures.
So the kind of two things we see here, and maybe we even back up a little bit and say, hey, guess what? Statutory preemption, why it's so important? Well, it creates uniformity, so we don't have confusion about what the gun laws are. I can travel anywhere in the state and it's the same. So I think that's important to note because the arguments that the city of Philadelphia makes in these cases doesn't make sense, right? Yeah. If we, think the law should be uniform, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, we don't get there. So the big thing that they argue here is, hey, guess what? state, Commonwealth, golly, that's getting me.
I know, right?
Hey, look here, Commonwealth. You are needlessly endangering citizens of the city of Philadelphia. You're creating a state danger here. And while you don't have, 14th Amendment, you don't have an affirmative duty to go out and protect folks. We have Supreme Court precedent that says that. You do have some responsibility here in not making it more dangerous or less safe or, endanger public health. And that doesn't really fly.
No, and you know me. You know I love substantive due process. I love it. But they make a substantive due process argument here that's just like,
Yeah.
come on. Like, so their substantive due process argument here is that, we have a due process right to life and liberty.
Yep.
And the fact that this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania will not further regulate gun violence. Could you hear the air quotes in my voice? I think you could. It means that we cannot pursue life and liberty, and you have violated our substantive due process rights, which is just the most chicken shit argument I've ever heard.
Well, and it's a complete, turning on its head the way that we, have rights. Okay. So we have rights given to us by God. The government, it can't interfere with those rights because they exist with us. When we talk about life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, we're talking about a negative right, a restraint on the government from interfering with that. They turn this complete scheme on its head saying, hey, guess what? The government gives you life. The government gives you liberty. And, because you're messing with one of those aspects, that's why we get to regulate it.
I can't have life or liberty without more laws.
Yeah, that's one of the weirdest arguments I've ever heard. And it's just a complete bizarro world understanding of how the law works.
It is. So we have, I think, just why is this so important? And we got the right decision here, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But why is it so important that we got the right decision? And I think Richard started to go here earlier in the conversation, but when we have state preemption, we clear the path for people to exercise their Second Amendment rights.
Oh, yeah.
Because we are such a law-abiding population. Gun owners want to do the right thing. Gun owners are very cautious of not breaking the law. When you make the law this horrific patchwork and minefield of problems, you disincentivize carry and the exercise of the Second Amendment right.
Yes. And so, we see that with, and I mean, it's a heartbreaking conversation I have with folks. Well, it makes me sad that they maybe don't know the answer. But, when I talk to folks who are like, hey, I'm traveling from Dallas to Houston, what are the carry laws in Houston? And I'm pleased to report, hey, guess what? The laws are uniform, go with God. But the idea that these people hesitate to not engage in their Second Amendment rights because of the administrative confusion, because of maybe there's no uniformity in the laws, that makes us less safe.
It does. And you can really see, when you look at the heavily anti-gun states, you tend not to see preemption laws in place because they like that. That's not,
yes.
I'll quote one of my favorite content creators, which is Ben Shapiro. That's not a bug, that's the feature.
Sure.
Right? It's not like, oh no, we don't have preemption and now it's very confusing. It's like, aha, we don't have preemption because it's very confusing and because it disincentivizes people.
And you see it kind of, for the most part, I'll say, and I'm sure there's an exception to every single rule, but generally when we see preemption, we see more friendly gun laws. You don't typically see, there are states that are uniformly have terrible gun laws, right?
Sure.
But you don't see, statutory preemption in a gun hostile, hostile to the Second Amendment state, and then a city trying to make an in run around them and make more restrictive gun laws. We just don't see that example come up too frequently.
We really don't. No, generally speaking, we are, it's just not one that comes up.
Yeah. So ultimately, all right, City of Philadelphia sued, case got dismissed, appealed up to the Supreme Court. They upheld the dismissals. They found that, hey, guess what? These provisions are constitutional. When the legislature makes a law, that's what the legislature does. It's not the court's job to make the law. And so overall, I would say this is a fantastic opinion.
Yeah. Nice try, Philadelphia.
See you next time. But we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And as always, question and comment for us below. Until next time, we're the armed attorneys.